And we are live.
We are live. Welcome back, Chico and The Grin, episode 3. I am Chico, and I'm here with Mr.
Grin.
And we're back for episode number 3.
Yes.
And we're going to try to straighten a few things out this time. Episode 2 was a little all over the place. We were a little full for a meeting, but I think we're going to do...
Itis.
We did. We were extremely full.
Yeah, it was good food, though.
Yeah, it was delicious.
Yeah.
But now we're back. New week, new news. Whole new set of topics we can talk about.
Yeah, it's like every week. Seems like things are just getting crazier and crazier.
Every week there's something new. Every day there's something new. Whether it's politics or world events, science.
Religion.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like, that's the thing that's always on my mind. It's like, I can't make this up, When given the state of affairs around the world, yes, it's always grim for somebody. Somebody's always suffering. True, right? There's always an apocalypse going on for somebody. Like, it may not be apocalypse for everybody, but somebody's going through hell. But sometimes, man, when I look at the news or just the information out there, I'm like, yo, this is really bizarre. It's not like bizarre where it's like, okay, this is a fucked up situation that can be fixed. This is just strange. This is just bizarre. And I don't know. I just feel like the next big thing is going to be like something very drastic or something just out of this world.
I'm waiting for
far-fetched.
I'm waiting for war with North Korea. That's the next big thing that's going to happen.
We don't want no war with North Korea.
I mean, I know we don't, but I think that's the next thing that's going to pop off. We're going to have to go back over there and show that pudgy bastard what's up.
Yeah, but that pudgy bastard is not afraid of us.
He will be.
That's the thing. It's like a lot of people are afraid to go to war with the United States,
The thing is, I think...
but what if he partners with China?
That's true. China and Russia are technically...
China doesn't give a fuck about us.
I think they do.
To an extent.
I think if we can convince China to not really have his back so much, because we can always impose embargoes on North Korea, and China really can't do too much about that.
No, but I feel like China is a world power, and if they wanted to, they could throw down.
Yeah, but I don't think they will. I think they have more to lose.
True.
Than North Korea. Like if
their whole economy.
If it became, who do we pick? Do we pick the United States, who sends all their stuff over here to be made, or North Korea, who we have to teach how to use the internet? Who are we gonna pick? I think if anything, they would be like the mediation between America. But I think once King, whatever his name is, figures out that we're not. I think he'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I was very confused. I was hangry. Don't be mad at me. We don't have Snickers here. I couldn't fix this.
They hate us because they ain't us.
That's right. They hate us because they ain't us.
That was a good movie.
That's right. So what's going on with you, man? What's new?
Me, just making art. I just recently did a show called a Blank Canvas the other day. It was cool. It was just it's internet. It's like an internet TV station. And it's the second time I was on the show. I go in there and I talk about, because it's like a live stream type of thing. And people chime in, and it's like a chat room, and they'll see me working on art and we're responding. There's like an admin who reads me the comments and stuff. So it's kind of cool. It's like I'm giving an art lesson, but at the same time, I'm just talking to a bunch of people about art from all over the world. So that happened last week, and that was pretty cool, which it really sparked the thing to keep me in my creative zone. Because, like being a creative, it comes and goes. The motivation, inspiration, the drive, and all that, it comes in waves.
Right.
But last week, I just happened to be like really focused and just like dedicated to, making a sculpture for the show that just sparked something. And then towards the end of the week, I checked out your recommendation of the Irving Penn show.
How goes that?
It was very interesting. It's like I love photography, but I'm not like, I don't love photography on your level. You're the photographer. You love it in and out. You could talk about cameras for days. I like good art,
Right.
So, but going there and viewing his exhibition, it was interesting. It was real. They gave a great look at the man's career,
right? From beginning to end.
Yeah, and it was very thorough, especially like the backdrop, how they had his actual backdrop that he used, and they put it in a gallery for people to take photos and stuff. And I was like, me and my girl, we took photos, and I was like, this is nice, man. It's a nice.
It's a great exhibit. If you're in the New York City area,
it's over on Saturday, right?
I think so. Yeah, it's coming up pretty soon where it's going to be done. So if you're around, check it out. It's been up for quite a while. I went not too long after it opened up. I went like 2 or 3 weeks after it had opened up.
Yeah.
It was crazy packed when I went, which is one of the reasons why I didn't take a photo in front of the backdrop, because there were just so many people. The line to take a picture went all the way through the gallery and around the corner.
Well, just in case anything like that happens again, I have my membership to the Met. I renewed it.
Right.
Yeah. I had it a couple years ago. I stopped. But then when I went back to the Met, I was like, you know what? I remember when I had my membership, I was always at the gallery, just doing something at the museum, whether taking a tour, relaxing. I was always there when I had spare time. So when I went for the exhibit, I just paid for it again, man.
I got to do that. I've been slacking. I remember you sent me the links a while back. If you got the New York City ID, you got the free membership. Yeah, I never did that because I don't know.
I don't even use that ID anymore.
I have a driver's license, a New York City driver's license. There's no need for me to do that.
I think they just tried something and it didn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a good idea. It was cool that they got that many institutions to partner up with them. But what was your favorite piece from that show?
I like the images of. Oh well, there were two. Now that you bring it up, I like the images of his wife. I believe it was his wife because the last name on the model was Penn. So I assume it was his wife. She was very beautiful. You know, she just had like a unique style to her face and her body. She was very not just attractive, but she had a unique look to her. And I dug that when she was in whatever apparel it was, whatever brand.
It was his quote unquote wife.
Yeah, of course.
I've heard rumors of. Yeah,
of course, he's an artist.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we have that reputation. But my real favorite, and I'm kind of mad that they didn't have it in the postcard because every time I go to the Met, I love to get postcards.
So yeah, I bought the whole collection of postcards that they had from him.
What do you mean they had a whole collection?
They had you know how at the end of the exhibit they had the table with his book, the Centennial book, and then all the postcards?
No, when I was there, they only had a couple postcards.
Oh, there was when I went, there was right by where you paid the lady.
Yeah.
They had a whole shelf full of all the postcards.
Oh shit.
There was probably 10 postcards in one packet you could buy for like $24.
Nice.
Yeah.
I did that for the Ken Henry Wiley show.
I bought the pack and then I bought a bunch of the extra ones of the guy on the motorcycle because it's one of my favorite photos.
No, I remember that.
I wish they would have had the Picasso picture on the postcard.
I saw that one.
That's my favorite pen photo. Probably my favorite pen photo ever is the portrait of Picasso.
But I like the ones where he had these 3 native type of warriors. I guess they were African warriors with the mask, and I was like, "That's awesome."
Yeah, there's video, old school video of him working on those photos. I think you can find them on YouTube. I'm not 100% sure. I vaguely remember seeing them on the internet. But there's footage of him in the studio when he's much older working on those photos of the indigenous people. I think I don't know if they're African warriors, to be honest. I think they may be Southern American.
Could be South American.
Yeah, I think it may be South American warriors.
It was like the way they were just standing. I was like...
He's got so many good photos, man. He's probably one of my top... I would say my top 3 or 4... we'll go top 5. He's definitely one of the top 5 photographers that I admire and that I look at because and this is probably going to not resonate with a lot of people because I don't know how much of whoever's listening are into photography, but he's well known for his portraiture, which is a lot of it's done in square format, so like the Instagram format, which is 6 by 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters. And back in the day, that was a very popular thing to shoot. You know, if you had the twin lens reflex, like the Rolleiflex, and the Hasselblads, but Hasselblads. But most portraiture nowadays is done on, full frame cameras, 35 millimeter equivalent. So that's 2 by 3 format, which is more rectangular than it is square. And it's really hard to make a good portrait in square format because you're oftentimes taking somebody who's vertical and you're putting them in a square format, and the composition is very hard to do. But Penn found a lot of interesting ways to photograph people within a square that made a lot of emotion. Okay. So like you have the Picasso photo where he's in the upper left-hand portion of the photo. His hat and his scarf are hiding half of his face, and you only see his eye. And you know it's Picasso because Picasso has that very famous-looking face.
Yeah, it's distinct.
And then you have the portrait he made of Truman Capote holding the glasses, which is another amazing portrait. And it's very interesting how he approaches his portraiture with square format. And you see something very similar in that with Platon. Do you know Platon's work?
Yes. He was on that abstract series.
Yes,
Yeah.
played that. He shoots Hasselblad's. He still shoots a lot of his portraits on film.
Okay.
Even today, if you watch the abstract series on Netflix, they show him photographing Colin Powell, General Colin Powell, and he's shooting retired General Colin Powell, and he's shooting.
Don't talk about aliens, Colin Powell.
He's shooting Colin Powell on a Hasselblad using a 120 millimeter macro lens, so you can get really, really close with this lens, and it kind of gives it a weird distorted perspective. For those of you who aren't familiar, he's the person who took the famous photo of Putin that everybody knows, where it's like very tight in Putin's face and he kind of has those dead eyes. Mm-hmm. And he's the person who took the famous photo of Bill Clinton sitting on the box with his legs wide open.
Yeah,
that's him. He's a very famous portrait photographer. And I bring that up only because, you know, the similarities between his work and Penn's work with the 6x6 format, and of course because it's film. You know, Irving Penn has influenced a lot of photographers since he's with his work.
What do you feel about Gordon Parks?
I love Gordon Parks. That man is a genius. Gordon Parks, probably the most, I don't want to say underrated, because whenever people bring up Gordon Parks, you will never really hear a bad thing. But he was so talented, I don't think people realize like how prolific he was. He was an amazing photographer. He's a cinematography director. Directed the movie about his life, which was amazing. I think it was called Half Past Autumn was the name of the movie. And it's based on his book, Half Past Autumn. He wrote poetry. And if I'm not mistaken, I also believe he was a musician. I might be making that up. I'm not sure. But he had so many different talents. But his photography when in Harlem, amazing. Like he had access to so many places that in that time most people wouldn't want to go, and he told compassionate stories with his photography. Like, he's just, man, Gordon Parks is just, he's crazy. Like, he's so good. Now I don't think most people realize how good Gordon Parks really is. And if you haven't watched his documentary movie, Half Past Autumn, it's on YouTube, so go check that out.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, I
fucking little lesson right there.
His photography is so good. I mean, again, he's part of that like time in photography history that was, you know, he's among the greats. He's there with Eugene Smith. He's there with Henri Cartier-Bresson, Bruce Davidson, Robert Frank, Elliot Erwitt. You know, just all of these photographers. You may not know them by name, but I'm sure if you were to look up their photos, you would know the photos instantly. Like, he's one of like the godfathers of photography. He's photojournalism. Like, he's that kind of guy. Like, when you speak of Gordon Parks, you're talking about one of the best to ever pick up a camera. And he came from crazy poverty, like poverty.
Yeah. You
know, he's African American. His family, if I remember right, his family were sharecroppers. He didn't finish college, or he almost wasn't able to go to college. What was it?
Different generation.
Yeah, like he
different times.
He may have been the first person in his family to go to college and finish, or go to college period, or finish high school or something like that. Like, he did a lot of things that at that time in the 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s, that you really, a black person really wasn't expected to do.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why I think all his work's amazing, because you can see it through his work. You can see struggle through his work.
Are there any other exhibits right now that you know about going on in the city? Or what's on your radar right now?
Right now, I haven't. There was an Henri Cartier-Bresson show going on at the Rubin.
I know that museum. It's a
down,
nice one.
Yeah, in Chelsea, but
yeah.
I don't know if it's still going on. I feel like it is. I'm not 100% sure if it is, but it's his work from when he was in India. He was there for Gandhi's death, and he covered Gandhi's funeral. Allegedly, he was there. He was the last person to speak to Gandhi before Gandhi died. Allegedly. But
allegedly.
I don't know how true that story is.
Yeah.
What about you? Anything that you're trying to get to go see?
Well, I wanted to go see the Michelangelo exhibit down at the
Oculus.
You know what? I went there the other day, but it was gone already.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, because you had to pay the admission fee just to see like the space. I mean, I would have wanted to see it anyway, but you know, I guess I was kind of discouraged.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to the Michelangelo exhibit in September at the Met.
Is it going to be the same one or a different one?
No. Well, the Oculus one was just a reproduction.
Right, of the Sistine Chapel.
Like a life-size reproduction of the Sistine Chapel. So it wasn't a real thing. But the one at the Met coming in September is supposed to be like, you know, of course it's not going to have the Sistine Chapel, but it'll have like sketches and paintings and sculptures because he's a sculptor artist, but like his big body of work. It's like a once-in-a-lifetime exhibit. Like, I missed the Tim Burton exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art. I missed the Da Vinci exhibit at the Met. So I'm really looking forward to, like, seeing this one. For however long I got to wait in line to go see it, I want to see it, man. Because these exhibits, it's like, you don't get to see them all the time.
Right.
You know?
They come around.
Once in a lifetime.
Yeah. Especially by artists of that caliber, right?
Yeah. Like the Del Toro, the director, his exhibit is still touring, right? It's in different galleries. You know, there's another exhibit that's been touring around the United States. Last time I heard it was in Virginia, and it's about I forgot the title of it, but it's Japanese bodysuits, right?
Whoa.
Yeah. But it's like modern artists are doing them. So it's a lot of guys from California, and they have like the full art and everything. But it's a big exhibit for it. Mm-hmm. It's not like some something from the Lower East Side. Yeah. It's like a gallery size show. So there's that exhibit that I've been keeping an eye out for. Hopefully it'll come to New York and I'll be able to check it out. But as for that, there's nothing major on my radar that I'm looking out for. I mean, I just got my membership. Again, and I'm not trying to plug the Met or anything, but for me, that's like my number 3 museum. It was my number 1. My number 1 museum is now the National Portrait Museum in London and the National Gallery.
Oh, you fancy. Your number 1's in London.
Yeah, man.
Oh, you moving up.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. They're free, too.
Really?
Free, yeah.
Not even a donation?
No. It's like, I asked them, I was like, they're like, no, it's free. Stop talking to me. Go. I was like, shit. The portrait gallery is amazing, man, because like it says, it's a portrait gallery. You see so much work. And then because it's London, they have that old British style of architecture in the building, and it's all this wooden stuff. It was just like, I love it. You know?
Man, I gotta go.
The National Gallery, which is humongous. It's humongous. It's big, but again, I don't know if they did this on purpose. I'm pretty sure they did. But when I went in there, I noticed how when I started in one section, it took me through the different phases of art. You know, and I wasn't following a map or anything. I was just wandering through. But I saw how I went from the past to the different eras in the art into the modern stuff. And it was like, or it was semi-modern.
Right.
But man, that's a beautiful fucking museum. Beautiful museum.
Gotta go to London.
It's cheap tickets. You know,
gonna have to do that.
Go there in the weekend. It's just like New York.
Yeah.
Seriously, London is just like New York. A little bit better. You know, a little bit forward thinking. Not so shitty as London not as shitty as New York with the subway systems.
Right, their subway system looks pretty legit.
Yeah. There's no AC though.
What?
Yeah, that's what people told me. It was like, yeah, it's okay now in a cooler time, but in the summer there's no AC, so you have to open the windows. But everybody's nice. I mean, it's a city. It's one of those cities you have to see on your own. It's like I would compare London to like my all-time favorite city of Tokyo. Mm-hmm. It's up there like that.
Speaking of Tokyo,
yeah.
I just saw a thing on Facebook earlier. Mm-hmm. So people always complain that getting to Tokyo is really expensive. They say it's always like $1,000 plus there to Tokyo.
At least, yeah.
Right. So,
but you can find tickets for like $600.
Right. But what I heard, or what this thing was telling me, was that during the summer, you could snag a round trip ticket to Nagoya, Japan, for $300 to $400.
Yeah.
And it's only a 3-hour train ride away. And if you're going to Japan, most of the times apparently Nagoya is on the list anyways because of the castles that they have there. Mm-hmm. So they say if you're going to travel to Japan, you might as well take a much cheaper flight to Nagoya and then just take the train down to Tokyo.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
I mean, you can like that's the thing.
That's a big savings.
Yeah, it's like but the thing is when most people travel, they pay for comfort. Right?
True.
It's like, oh, I want to do that. Like I always want to fly first class. I haven't done it yet.
That's just expensive.
Yeah, but I will always want to do it. But when I travel, my rule when I travel is like this: just take what you can carry.
Right. I only bring one bag. I only bring one backpack.
It's like I don't give a shit about anything else. I just take what I can carry. Whatever I need, I buy when I'm there. Right. So, if you're looking to spend a lot of money, you'll spend a lot of money. But if you're looking to like, I just want to get somewhere, then you could find another way to get somewhere. Like when I was in Europe last time, and I found the way to bounce around was EasyJet, right? And this is an endorsement for them or anything, but you know, it was like €50 to go from boom to like all the way over somewhere else. So I'm like, that's fucking crazy.
Is that like a small jet?
Yeah, it's like a small plane. But they only travel within Europe.
I see.
So it's cost efficient. But people say like, oh, you can't bring a lot of bags, you can't do this, you can't do that. Of course they're gonna charge you. It's fucking called EasyJet. It's not called like first class travel.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like you're sacrificing something, but at the same time you're able to bounce around Europe
very cheaply
for dirt cheap. And it's like,
how safe is it?
I don't know.
You weren't afraid that the plane would just fall out of the sky?
No. I mean, it's not a rinky-dink plane.
Where'd you travel from on EasyJet? Like from where to
I
where?
went from Germany to Italy, from Italy to London, and then from London back to Germany.
And how long were the flights? Were they super long?
A couple hours.
I like this. I'm gonna have to make a note of this.
Yeah, man. So when I was there, I was like, somebody told me about it. I was like, okay. No, I think when I was here in America, I found out about it, and then I booked my trip. But when I found out about it, I was like, you know what? This is kind of cool, you know. And they even have some trips that go to like the borders of Africa, right? So I thought about going to Egypt, but I was like, nah, I'm not gonna risk it. But when I go back, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to Florence. I'm gonna go back to London, and I can like spend 2-3 days on each place and just keep bouncing, bam, bam, bam.
That's really good. I mean,
pack light.
Yeah, I mean, I only bring the one backpack that I have, the bigger bag,
Yeah.
which is what I carry around New York City every day. So it's not huge,
Mm-hmm.
but I've packed 3-4 days worth of clothing into that bag. That's all I really need. If you're gonna go for anything longer than that, you're gonna wash clothes anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah.
If you're gonna go out, just buy like a nice shirt, bring some shoes, and that's it.
My rule of thumb is bring a pair of jeans, bring a pair of shorts, and bring a nice pair of pants. So you have 3 pairs of pants, bring a nice shirt, and then just bring a bunch of t-shirts.
Yep.
And then you need 1 pair of shoes, a couple pairs of socks that you can wash in the sink if you have to.
Yep.
Some underwear. Underwear is the only thing I go ham on sometimes because I have this fear that I'll be caught without underwear. Like this is a real fear. I don't know how
to have clean drawers.
Don't know how many people have this fear, but I have a fear that I'll be in a country where I don't know how to speak the language, and I'll be eating something I'm not familiar with, and my asshole will be like, it's time to evacuate the premises, and I will shit myself, and I will not have a pair of underwear to recover. That is one of my greatest fears. I'm not going to say whether or not I've shit my pants before, but the fear of shitting my pants in a foreign country is worse than me being lost in a foreign country.
I've been lost in a foreign country.
The only thing that would be worse is if I'm lost and I shit my pants. Then I'm really up shit's creek. But that I always pack at least 2 or 3 pairs more than I would think I need of underwear.
Yeah.
Just in case. You never know.
You never know.
I'd rather be robbed at gunpoint than shit my pants in a foreign country. That's the kind of fear I have of shitting my pants.
There's something interesting though about, or something. What's the word? I don't know. It's not interesting. I can't think of the word. I guess exciting about being lost in another country. Like everywhere,
sort of.
Everywhere I travel, except for Brazil, I didn't do the shit in Brazil. I was like, nah, fuck that.
That was a long time. You went to Brazil way back when, right? Like when?
I think that was 2009.
Yeah, but you went to the jiu-jitsu trip, right?
I went on my own.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you. Oh, you went. That's right. You stayed at the
Connection Rio.
Connection Rio. That's right. That's right. Okay.
Shout out to Connection Rio, Dennis Ash, Professor Dennis Ash.
I remember seeing when they first started doing that. I remember seeing on the Sherdog forums when they were advertising.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it so bad.
It was dirt cheap.
This is what I heard. That was the big draw, right? Like the whole thing was that you come, they put you up, you pay the fee or whatever. They put you up. And you can stay there, train jiu-jitsu, and then you can just explore and you meet friends. Cash did it too, our friend Cash.
Yeah, he did it with Ginch.
Yeah, he did it with Ginch, yeah.
Yeah, it was
now
like...
Ginch lives down there banging transvestites.
No comment. No, but it was a good trip. But the thing about it was like, because of Brazil, the way it was, I was like, nah, man. That's one place I'm not going to venture out.
I would never get... I still hear horror stories of people just getting robbed.
Yeah.
All the time in Brazil.
There in Jamaica, I didn't venture out. But Mexico... I did a bunch of times. Europe, everywhere I went, I got lost. In Japan, I got lost. You know.
I feel like if there's one city in the world that I'm gonna get lost in on purpose, it's probably Paris or Florence.
Paris is beautiful.
Yeah, I think if I was I've never been to Europe. I want to go really bad.
Yeah.
I think, and I've always been torn between whether I want to go to Paris or if I want to go to Barcelona or if I want to go to Florence first.
Florence first.
That's really what I'm thinking. I'm leaning towards Florence. Ever since I read Inferno by Dan Brown. Listen, I know.
It's like every episode you come with the worst fucking references.
I read the book. The book is fantastic. The book is so good.
Whether it's a movie,
well, you hate
something else.
Listen, my taste in movies is impeccable. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about. It's impeccable. My taste in movies is impeccable. But in the book Inferno, was really good. And
the movie was okay.
The movie was all right. The thing with aside from like the storyline of the book, what I liked about it was that it took you around Florence and it told you about places. And if you read the book, it specifically mentions places about art. So it gave you almost a whole map of places in Florence to go check out art.
Florence was the Mecca.
Yeah.
For art.
That's where Da Vinci's from, and Dante and all those people. Yeah. Which is great. And after reading that book, I really wanted to go to Florence real bad. I mean, Paris is nice, but if I had to choose between croissants and spaghetti, I'm gonna pick spaghetti every day.
There's a guy that he's a sculpture artist, and I've been following him for a while, man. And he has a class. He comes here to the States and he works, but he also has a class that he teaches. I believe it's in Florence. It's either Florence or Milan. But it's like maybe 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks for just anybody who wants to just go overseas, learn how to make sculptures the way they did in the Renaissance.
Damn.
Yeah.
That sounds intense.
It's cool.
This shit must have been hard back then.
But he's like that's his style of making art. You know, he's a like, I don't want to say mannerist, but he's more into the neoclassical style of sculptures. Mm-hmm. So he sticks to like the formula that they were back in the day. You know, I'm not into that, but man, I would love to do it just for the experience.
Yeah, I mean,
they're like, yo, if you want to make marble out of the way they did it back in the day, you can come home with a bust of somebody's head from fucking Bernini. I was like, God damn it. Yeah.
How much does something like that cost?
I don't know. I didn't even look into it.
Because marble ain't cheap.
No.
So if you're paying for, I'm sure the cost of materials is included.
Yeah, I mean, he has room and board too, so it's all a package.
Imagine back then, like, you're an artist and you're just like, I need a block of marble.
Yeah, but you get paid by people.
They commission you.
That's the thing. It's like, but back in those days, it was a lot different. You know, you had an apprenticeship, you had schooling, but which was two different things, right? So if I wanted to learn painting, yeah, my parents would probably send me to a school and be like, okay, well, he wants to be a painter, but to be a painter, it's not like I'm gonna paint pictures on my own. It was like I'm gonna paint in this style because there was no photography, so this is the style that people have family portraits done. That would be your career, right? And then if you want to branch out, you can branch out into other things. So it's like take Da Vinci, right? His parents were like, even though he was a bastard child, they were like, you can't go into the guild, you can't become a banker because you're a bastard. So because of that, he was illegitimate. And it was like, you can't follow the family's trade because he comes from a family of bankers. So they were like, okay, well, you're fucking crazy talented. Go train under this guy, right? Was it Verrocchio? I don't know. I can't remember. I forgot the name. I want to say Verrocchio. Could be wrong. But so anyways, he goes, and Da Vinci as a youth is doing like crazy stuff where his teacher was just like, I'm not gonna paint no more. Yeah, he's like, that's it. I can't. He's like, after seeing Da Vinci, he's like, I can't paint. I'm not going to paint anymore.
You fucked my shit up.
Yeah, he's like, that's it. I'm done.
That's amazing.
Yeah, man.
Do you have Da Vinci's biography?
Yeah, I got 2 of them. Yeah.
Which one is like the...
There's on my bookshelf, I got the double volume, the 1 and 2. It's pretty good.
I got to check him out. I have, on my reading list, I have
a bunch of books from him.
Oh, okay.
I have a book of his writings.
I got to look at more paintings.
Yeah.
I gotta look at more painting stuff. But I have a book list of books that I want to finish reading in 2017.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs is up there, Benjamin Franklin, and Da Vinci. I got those 3 people. I need to read their biographies.
Benjamin Franklin was a great guy. You know, especially
seemed like
he wrote an essay on chess, which is just like I think it was like the morals of chess. It's like a 2-page thing, but man, it's just like it's so it's a cool read because he just explains how chess relates to everything in life.
Right.
He was a thinker.
Yeah.
He was one of those what they call a Renaissance guy. He just did it all. You know.
Do you ever wonder what these people like Da Vinci or Benjamin Franklin or just anybody from the past who made an impact on the world, if you could bring them back today and look at what our society's like, what do you think they would say?
I think they would say we're failures.
Right?
Yeah, that's because, that's how I feel about it. When I look at these people, and when I read autobiographies of the people that I admire, it's not like they're out there, even Huey P. Newton, he fell victim to like crack and all that stuff, and drugs. But when in his heyday, what he was known for was like he took a chance. He did these things. He stood up for something. It was like he studied. These are things that people don't do nowadays. They don't study. They don't learn. They're too, when I'm on a train, and I'm looking at what people are doing on their phones, and I know it's judgmental of me, and I shouldn't do that. But I either have my book, I have my Kindle, or if I'm on my phone, I'm reading something, or I'm trying to do Duolingo if I have a signal, right? But I'll see people. I'm like, yo, you're just playing fucking games, man.
I'm not gonna lie, I judge the shit out of people on the train.
Yeah, but I know I'm a prick. I shouldn't fucking judge people. But at the same time, I'm like,
just embrace it.
You have this time. Do something.
Right.
We're stuck on the train for at least 20, 30 minutes. Do something productive. And that's the problem with society. People are not doing. If you hear that sound, Steve is chewing on some crunchy ass fucking pretzels. But no, it's like, I think if these guys were to come back nowadays and they would look at society, they were like, yo, what the hell? There was an episode of Boondocks where they did that one time. They brought back Martin Luther King. Like, Martin Luther King didn't die, right? And they were like, oh, he was in a coma, all this stuff. Yes, dead serious. And they were like, he wakes up and he flips out. He's like, fuck all y'all messed up. Yeah, serious. And he goes on his rant and he's like, I think it was like he's moving to Canada or some shit. Because he was like, what the hell is going on? What is all this stuff? Because people forget, man.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
I don't know. Like with me, like I'll look at what these guys did in the past, and I'll read their stories, and I'll read about what they're talking about, and a lot of shit that they were fighting for back then, people are still fighting for now. And I'm like, there's a reason, because people haven't changed.
Yeah,
it seems like we changed,
not really,
but we haven't.
No, it all swings back in different directions into extremes, and I see. Man, I see all sorts of weird articles, and it pisses me off because I have friends on all spectrums of, I guess, the political meter.
Yeah.
So I have friends who post super conservative things, and then I have friends who post super quote-unquote progressive things, and it's weird to see that there's, like, almost no middle ground anymore, like, it's all just, like, I don't know, if you're, like, not on the super left, then you're a monster, and if you're not on the super right, then you're some kind of liberal retard of some kind. There's just nobody who's like normal. It's so strange to me. I don't know, and I've learned to like bite my tongue because I don't have the mental capacity to argue anymore. Like I don't want to engage in real conversation on Facebook because there seems to be this trend to ignore facts, ignore logic, and just go with like, well, this is how I feel. And I don't think people realize like you're allowed to feel however you want. I'm never going to say you're not allowed to feel that way, but I do believe that opinions can be wrong.
Yeah, of course.
And people have opinions, and they're very adamant. I'm like, well, this is my opinion, and it can't be wrong. I'm like, no, because there are plenty of opinions that have been wrong. And I hate to go full Hitler, but Hitler had a lot of opinions that a lot of people think are just plain wrong, because they are. So it is possible to have an opinion that is wrong.
I just look at it as right now we live in a very sensitive time. And I say sensitive because everybody's fucking sensitive. Black, white, everybody. And it's like, stop being so sensitive. Stop being so defensive and listen to people sometimes. Right? With the whole election, everybody was like, oh, Democrat, Republican, Independent, this, that, and other. Or that person's racist. This person's this. It's like, stop with the bullshit. Like,
yeah,
pay attention to the facts. Right. Cut your emotions out of the shit.
Right. And then it becomes, if you give somebody, like you see this a lot with podcasts. Like if like I'm a big listener of the Joe Rogan Experience, and I'm a big listener of Waking Up.
The conspiracy guys.
Yeah, the conspiracy guys, and Waking Up with Sam Harris. And Sam Harris has people on his podcast, and so does Jerry. They have people who, and Dave Rubin of the Rubin Report.
That's the one I like.
Right.
Yeah.
They all have, what they all do that I like is that they'll bring people on with opinions that they agree with, but they also bring people on with opinions that they absolutely don't agree with. And they'll talk, and it'll be a reasonable, measured conversation. And I don't think we see that with a lot of people. Like everybody, because of Facebook, everybody has created their own echo chamber where you surround yourself with people who only share your same opinion. So you're never going to get your ideas challenged.
Nope.
And that's, I mean, historically, that's how you progress as a human. That's how you learn. You have an idea, you share it with somebody. If they don't agree with you, they tell you why you don't agree. They don't agree. Maybe they change your mind. Maybe they don't. But now you have a different perspective. And I remember learning that when you debate somebody, you're supposed, oftentimes they'll give you a topic to debate, and you don't have the option of which side you're debating. You don't get to choose if you're for or against. But they decide, you say, okay, you're against it, you're for it. Make your arguments, and it forces you to see something from a different perspective, which helps you understand it. That doesn't mean that it's going to be your perspective, but it helps you be able to see two sides and come to a logical, you and me could have a disagreement on whatever topic, but if I can see why you would think the way you do about something, it helps me understand that, and that overall helps me expand my ideas and my consciousness, I guess, about a certain topic. And nowadays, I don't think people are willing to do that. People just want to have people who agree with them. Like, if you're not using all these different pronouns, then you're a monster. Like, you have to use these pronouns. You have to. You have to.
You look like a guy, I'm gonna call you a guy. You look like a girl, I'm gonna call you a girl.
Right, and they don't get, like, so if, for, like, on that subject, like, if I see somebody who doesn't identify as a man, but biologically they are a man, and I say, sir, can I help you? And they're like, oh, you just misgendered me. Obviously, I didn't do it with the intention. Like, intention is...
Exactly.
People don't get it. Like,
it's like, what the fuck?
Right. My intention isn't to insult you.
Yes.
I'm trying to just be a normal person with you and engage you in conversation.
At least you show respect.
Right. So if you don't want to be called sir or mister, let me know.
Wear a fucking button.
Right. Or just say, be normal about it and be like, hey, I don't identify as a dude, call me this. And I'll be like, I mean, I don't care. Like, if you like, call me fucking Zibalot or whatever.
Bubba Sparks.
Right, call me Bubba Sparks. I'll be like, all right, Bubba Sparks. Like, it doesn't matter to me. And like, there's intention behind everything people do, and that's what people need to take in consideration, not whether or not, oh, you didn't call me Z, you're a monster, you're transphobic or whatever. Like, no, I didn't know. But, now that I know, I can call you by whatever you want to be called. But my intention wasn't to, like, honestly, like, if that's never happened to me, but if it did happen to me, I would probably lose my shit and be like, well, I don't care what you are at this point. You can be a frog. I'll call you frog. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just misspecies you.
Like, one time, I said something to my girl, and she was like, what do you mean? Because I was like, oh, I don't give a fuck about them. And she was like, what do you mean you don't give a fuck? And she tried to get all defensive. I was like, listen, I don't give a fuck about them. She was like, no, are you saying it? Because this was like when we were early dating. And she was like, oh, because I know a lot of black people don't like gays and all this stuff. And I was like, first of all, don't generalize them. Second of all, I told you straight up, I don't give a fuck about them. It doesn't mean that I hate them. It doesn't mean that I don't like them. It means I don't give a fuck about them. It means I don't care. Right? It means, like, I don't, like, hey, you want to fuck somebody? You want to do it.
I don't care. Right. Yeah.
And she was like, oh. And I was like,
see,
how hard is that to understand?
There's that misconception, though.
It's like, I don't care.
I see it a lot, and I see it a lot with white people who are trying to be quote-unquote allies.
Oh, yeah.
And listen, I have no problem if you want to dedicate your life and spend your time advocating for people who you feel are marginalized. Listen, whatever makes you happy. Right. Whatever makes you happy. I know you have... I know you have some opinions on how that works. I know you have some opinions on that, but like, if you're going to go ahead and do that, you need to realize, like, when somebody says, "I don't care," it doesn't always mean I hate that group of people or I dislike, this or that. It's just, I feel the same way John does, or I genuinely don't care. Like, there's a whole group of people out there. Who, choose to live in a I guess, I don't want to say normal, because normal is such a weird word to begin with.
But it's not even a disrespect. It's just saying, like, it's like, I don't give a fuck about people who live in fucking Alaska.
Yeah, I don't either. But you see what happens is you say I don't care, and then they're like, oh,
defensive.
Right, they get defensive. It's like, no, you don't understand. It's not that I don't care as in the sense that I don't care if they get hurt or I don't care if people hate them. I just don't care what they do with their life. Like, I don't, it doesn't matter to me. And I've said that as well, and I've had people be like, what do you mean you're not going to stand up for them? I'm like, first off, they should stand up for themselves, to be honest. If we're going to be honest about it, if you want to look at groups historically who've gotten shit done, Black Panthers, they did it themselves. They fucking went to the extremes, and they got the attention they needed, and they said this shit's going to change. Martin Luther King, same thing, extremes. I mean, he's not an extreme person, but what he did caused an extreme reaction.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I have no problem with people who identify as whatever. Hey, whatever makes you happy, man, or girl, or whatever. Cat, furry, whatever you want to call yourself.
Furries.
Hey,
forgot about them.
Yeah, otherkin. I mean, there's just so many things. Like, it doesn't matter, because it is. And it sounds selfish. It doesn't pertain to me. It doesn't matter to me, right? Like, I'm a straight dude. I am Hispanic, but most people think I'm white. I just call myself beige. It's just like, I identify as beige. I identify as the color beige.
You wouldn't use the term Latino?
Yeah. But the thing is, like, it doesn't matter. Like, those terms, like, it's weird, because I don't...
I know more people on the East Coast use Hispanic rather than Latino.
It's I mean, there is a difference between Latino and Hispanic. Okay. Technically, I guess. It's interchangeable for me. Mm-hmm. I identify as American. If you want my, like, and I say this, and people get so mad when I say this, and I'm like, I was born in New York. I was born in the United States of America. My first language is English. I speak Spanish, but my first language is English. My favorite sport's baseball. Like, I love American pie. I love apple pie. I love apple pie. Like, apple pie with ice cream. It doesn't get, like, I don't know how. I love fireworks. I love hot dogs. It's like, I'm an American. I don't know. I love guns. I like whiskey.
I don't like hot dogs.
I mean, do you like hamburgers?
Of course.
Same thing, really.
With bacon and cheese.
It doesn't get more American.
Don't trust people who don't like bacon and cheese.
Exactly. I like a nice fat steak with a glass of red wine. Like, I like cigars. Like, there's just things that, like, and they don't get it. They're like, well, you're like, your family's from Puerto Rico. Yeah. So you're Hispanic. Yeah. You're Latino. Yeah. But I'm American. Like,
Puerto Rico is America, by the way, just in case you didn't know.
Yeah, it's a Commonwealth, and I'm like, listen, it's real simple. Where's your passport? What passport do you have?
You remember that one time we were at that party and that girl was like, they was like, yo, what they say? Have you ever been to Puerto Rico? Or no, you said, like, I'm Puerto Rican. She's like, I love South America. Remember that?
You just brought it so far back. Do you remember the look on my face when she said that? I actually have a picture from that. We were at a bar with those two girls. I have a picture from that night.
Funny as shit.
Oh my God. Dude, you just took me way back. Holy shit. Yeah, I remember we were there. We were with Otis, and she was...
No.
Was it just us? Because it was the place in the Bowery, right? That we had to go downstairs. We had to go downstairs.
This was the party down by the seaport. That yoga guy.
Oh, Sean Langhouse.
Yes, remember?
Then we ended up walking to 42nd Street to get the fucking train because we smoked a bowl that was like sent us into outer space.
What are you talking about?
Dude, we're at this party in the South Street Seaport.
Yes.
Remember? And he busted out the bong, and we took 2 rips, and we walked from the South Street Seaport before Hurricane Sandy. So this place was still intact.
Oh shit.
And remember, we walked. I have pictures of you took a picture of me hanging off one of those giant anchors that they used to have as decoration. It was snowing outside, and I was hanging off a giant anchor. How do you not remember this?
Now I'm lost.
Yeah, there was that same night, and then we walked from the South Street Seaport all the way to 42nd Street because we were so high we couldn't find a fucking train, and we passed like 30 trains, and we ended up at the A train on 42nd Street Port Authority. You don't remember that night?
I don't remember that story.
But I do remember the girl. Yeah. I do remember that girl. She was like, I love South America. And I was like, oh, that's nice. And I was like, oh, this broad's dumb.
Wow. Well,
I'll never forget. I was like, oh, yeah. And I walked away. I was like, oh, that's nice. I love South America. Puerto Rico's for sure South America.
you learn something new every day.
Oh, my Jesus. Man, I can't believe you remembered that. That just like triggered a bunch of memories in my mind.
But I remember the party. Yeah, when we were talking about Puerto Rico, just I don't know, that scene just popped up in my head.
That's funny. It's like, funny wow. how that just comes up, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, that's when people are like, I feel like everybody's so like ruffled about like their identity and how they want people to like notice them or how they want people to recognize them. I'm just like, if when you get down to like the very basic thing, we're just people. We're just humans. We're just slightly evolved monkeys.
That's one thing I really enjoy about traveling. You know, like whenever I leave North America, right? Yeah. When I get out of North America and I go somewhere and it's just like, okay, you're black. It's not even that. No, it's not even that I'm black. It's not even that I'm a person of color. It's like, you're American. You're American. That's what people identify me as. American. And it's like, it's a different vibe. Like when I'm chilling at a bar somewhere, another country, another place. I'm not trying to sound like I'm a jet setter and I fucking travel all the time, but when I do go, that's the best feeling because it's like people react to you differently. And I know, yes, there's racism everywhere, there's hatred everywhere, but there's nothing like the hate that's here in America.
Really?
I've never witnessed anywhere I went the hatred that comes with living in America. Right. So when I'm overseas or when I'm somewhere else, right? And yes, I'm different. I stand out. I'm fucking 6'3". But it's just people react to you differently than they do here. And I'm like, the fear or the ignorance isn't there. It's just like if there's racism, there's a certain type of racism with limits and restrictions. But here it's just like it's rampant hatred, just boom out. You can lose your life. But other places it's just like there's a limit to it.
I feel like it's good that you said that. I've had the
so people aren't caught up in their feelings as much.
Right. I've heard that
is what I'm saying.
That the racism in other countries is pretty bad. Like,
well, I guess it depends now because you got like, I know shit overseas is getting crazy with like all the migrants and immigrants and all that coming in.
Well, for example, I know that, and this isn't all Japanese people,
but I can only go by what I've experienced.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. But I'm pretty familiar with a lot of Japanese, Chinese, and Korean people.
Yeah, they hate blacks.
They hate black people.
For the most part, yeah.
But I guess they're not, like, outwardly hateful like hillbillies are.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like there's racism.
There's different types.
But there's that's what I just said. It was like there's racism, but there's restrictions and there's limits to the racism.
I see.
And nobody's going to kill you.
Right.
But in America, there's a chance you might get killed.
Fair enough.
You know, it's like there's an anime I like. Well, it started as, it's funny because it's like an anime. It started as a comic book, a manga, then it turned to an anime. Then it's a clothing line. The guy made movies. It's like, yeah, this dude, Santo something, right? But he's a Japanese guy, right? So he has this story called Tokyo Tribe, right? It's kind of cool, right? It's a couple books, and then they turned into like a 12-episode series. I think it's 12 episodes. They made a couple movies, spin-offs. It's a bunch of shit. Then he has like a clothing line. All this shit from his artwork, which is dope. He seems like a pretty cool guy. He does a lot of collaborations with like American hip hop dudes. But so in Tokyo Tribe, there's different gangs, we'll call them, right? Or cliques. Think of like the Warriors, right? The Warriors had like the baseball guys, the girls, the Lizzies. So Tokyo Tribe is kind of like that, where it's like the extreme. You got like the samurai crew, you got like the hip hop kids. So everybody has a name. And there's one name called Saru, right? It's like Saru monkey, Waru bad, Tokyo hands, Shibuya this. But Saru, they call them monkeys because, and this is what one of my friends told me. He's like, yeah, it's like they, like the older people, the generation, they call the little hip hop guys monkeys because they're running around like the black dudes. So they acting like a bunch of little monkeys. And I got a friend over there in Japan right now, a jiu-jitsu guy who he's married to a Japanese woman. And one time he went on a show about it. You know, some talk show they had out there, because he has a I guess biracial mixed child. But the thing that most people were talking about on that show was just like how it's not the modern generation. It's the older generation who's just ignorant to it. Right. Like one time I saw this documentary about foreigners living in Japan, like blacks particularly, living in Japan. And then a lot of them were outside of Tokyo. So they were like more in the rural areas, which was kind of like you're opening yourself up to problems anyway.
Right.
And they were saying like, yeah, how it's not like a hateful type of racism, but it's more like an ignorant type of racism. Right. But in China, it's a whole nother thing. Like I remember when they had the Olympics in China, there was a big report talking about there were signs posted all over the main areas, like the main downtown areas where the Olympics being held, that they didn't want no undesirables allowed. That's what the signs were saying. And a lot of people were talking about this shit. And it was like, what do you mean undesirables? It was like anybody who's dark, they didn't want you in their establishment. And there were signs like no undesirables allowed. Like even in Tokyo, they have signs where it's like, yo, no foreigners. No Africanos, you know, no. Yeah, it's like
I've heard that there's certain places that won't allow Americans in.
No, not even just Americans, no blacks, because there's a lot of Africans in Tokyo too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of Africans. You know, there's a lot of work over there, so you'll go to these places and you'll see a lot of foreigners, right? But I've experienced that. I mean, I don't look at it as like it's hatred,
right?
Because it's different from somebody saying like, "Yo, no niggas."
Yeah,
and they'd be like, "Yo, okay, you want to keep this low, like in Hawaii, right? On the beaches, these dudes will fuck you up if you're not local and you surf on their beach. They'll literally fuck you up. They got the beaches, locals only, and they mean that shit. If you're not a resident, if you haven't been living there, like I think somebody told me like it's 6 months. You gotta live there, have a cell phone. There's this whole shit around it. But they have beaches that are just for locals only. They don't want tourists there. They'll fuck you up. It's a known thing. I mean, everybody has their system. Right. And I get it, because you don't want gentrification coming in and fucking your shit up.
But if you do that here, then you're a fucking asshole.
There you go. You know, it's like, and then like one of my friends, she was at a protest the other day in Brooklyn, right? Because there's I think it was Crown Heights. I could be wrong, but there was an establishment where
the bullet holes?
Yeah, the bullet holes in the wall. Yeah. They had a big protest about this shit. And it was like, yo, you got to shut this shit down, because they're glorifying bullshit to sell stuff.
Well, yes.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what happens when you let gentrification take over. Yeah. So I get when certain people want to preserve their stuff. I don't look at that as like it's bad. It's like, yo, man, if this is your shit and you don't want to have any foreigners there, cool. Not a problem. I understand. Don't hate on me though.
Right.
Don't be like, oh, get the fuck out of here. Like, it's cool. Like when I was a teenager, we would go over, because I lived in Texas, we would go over to Mexico all the time, right? In Mexico, you could drink when you're like 16, so it's like we go over there, fucking get wasted and shit face. But there was places we couldn't go up in there. They were like, nah, private party. Right. They wouldn't get mad. They'd be like, oh, get the fuck out of here. But it was really like, yo, no blacks. Right. But it was like their way of just saying like,
I have like so many mixed feelings on that, because like I don't want to be an asshole to anybody that, you know, if I don't have to be.
Shit happens in K-Town.
Yeah, of course. But you know, it's like, it doesn't sound terrible, but like if I could, I'd have like a real chill spot in Brooklyn. I'd be like, no white people. Like, no white people. You want to come into this party? You have to live in this neighborhood at least 20 years. I mean, you have to get at least mugged in this neighborhood one time.
Sometimes I'll see stuff online. Like I'll see, like they'll have white girls dancing to like Jamaican music, and everybody's hyping her up. I'm like, yo, she can do the moves. I'm like, that's cool. And then a part of me is just like, that's how it starts. Yeah. You know, so it's like, yeah, it's a touchy situation, because it's like, do you want to sit there and be like, no, you can't do this? Like they say cultural appropriation.
I think it's bullshit.
But it's like, I can't call it appropriation.
Right. So
I know that's how shit starts.
Yeah. I know. I've had this conversation with a few people, and I think about this a lot. I don't know why. I think because I think a lot of it's bullshit. Some of it's well-founded, but like in my opinion, culture is something that is meant to be moved around. Like, you see it all the time with Japanese culture. How many people do you know who are not Japanese, who've embraced Japanese culture, where they've been learning Japanese, they watch Japanese anime, they eat only Japanese food, all their friends are Asian, even though some of those Asians may not be Japanese. Like, they've embodied, like, if for those of you familiar, it's called being a weeboo, if you're a white person. But like, you go to Comic-Con and you see all these non-Asian people dressed up like Asian characters, and nobody really cares about that, right? Like
until you're black and doing it.
Until you're black and doing it, or like until you're white doing something that's historically a black thing, right? Like, you see a white dude with cornrows, or you see a white dude with dreadlocks. Actually, the white dude with dreadlocks stands out to me less than a white dude with cornrows.
There was a white guy at a Klan rally with dreadlocks.
Listen, he needs to stop.
There's a picture of him floating around. It was like, really?
That's too much.
Seriously.
You can't see. That's the
He
shit.
was a part of the Klan
This is
rally.
what I'm
He had
This is what I'm talking about.
Like,
You can't make this shit up. Every day there's just something new, and you're like, really? But why? Why would you do that? But like, so dreadlocks is a good example. We may have had this conversation before, but there was somebody on Facebook who had posted something about a white dude with dreadlocks, and this whole thing about how it's cultural appropriation for white people to have dreadlocks and this and that. And when you look into it, when you research the history of dreadlocks, which I never thought in my lifetime I would have to Google where dreadlocks come from. Dreadlocks have been around.
It's actually called locks.
Right.
Dreadlocks is dreadlock. The word dread is negative.
But to do that to your
the
hair,
locks,
right?
Yeah, to lock it up.
Goes back hundreds of years
Yes.
to like tribes
Yes.
in Africa and in Greece, all over Europe.
Yes.
Because it was the easiest way to maintain long hair before people got their hair cut.
It's mostly when people have curly hair.
Right. Well, any kind of hair, really, because mostly
Curly hair is easier.
Right. But what I'm getting to is the first recorded thing of dreadlocks or locks is in Greece with slaves, and they would use mud to get their hair to do that because it was the cheap and easy way to maintain your hair in one thing as you worked.
But Greece, they also have curly hair.
Right, Greece they do. Right, there's just for sure a type of hair that it works better with. But the person I was talking with, and this is after this conversation, I stopped doing internet arguments because once they
It's
just
not worth it.
Right, because I said I'm like here's where I'm getting my information from. According to what I'm finding online, the first recorded instance in human history of dreadlocks is in Greece, and he was saying it was in Africa. I'm like, listen, here's my proof. Where's yours? I'll believe you if you can show me proof.
Yeah.
But if you're just gonna say, well, black people have, that type of hair, I'm like, okay, well, that's true, but if you can't show me that that's where it started, I'm not saying it didn't start there, but I'm saying what I found is this is where it started. So if you can show me where it's something else, then I'll take your word on it, even if it's a suspect link. But he couldn't. He just kept saying, well, this is blah. I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to change your mind.
Show me the facts.
Right. Show me the facts. If you can show me that this is where it started, then I'll believe you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're not going to listen to if you're not going to defer to the facts that I'm providing, then there's no point in arguing with you because you're dead set on making sure that your point sticks, which is
no matter what.
Right. Which is not going to change my mind. I'm just not going to argue with you anymore. And I feel like that's the whole cultural appropriation thing is like that. Like if you run into a culture that you resonate with, that you like, and you adopt it into your life, that's what the whole point of culture is. I think, and especially in New York City, we all do that.
Yeah.
How many kids do you know that aren't black who grow up in the hood and who just fit that mold of urban, right? It's not even a black thing. It's an urban thing.
I'm not saying they're trying to act black.
Right.
I'm not, cause
they used to back in the day.
What the fuck does that mean?
Right.
Like I have people tell me like, oh, you're a certain type of black guy. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
Right. Like, if you're black and you're educated, they call you what, an Oreo, right?
You're trying to act white.
Right.
But
how offensive is that? That's pretty offensive.
I've gotten that recently. It was like, you're a certain type of black guy. And I'm like,
what?
Explain that.
Yeah.
Explain what the fuck that means.
And I never get mad when people say you're not a real Puerto Rican because I've gotten that too.
Yeah.
I've gotten, oh, you're not a real Puerto Rican. I'm like, what does that mean? So we have somebody who we know who said that to me one time.
Recently?
No, this is a way back when.
Okay.
I'll tell you off air who it was, but I'm sure you can probably guess from how this conversation goes.
Okay.
He goes, "Oh, you're not a real."
Was it a short guy who rides a motorcycle?
Nah, no. This is somebody from a Middle Eastern country who we both particularly don't like. Yeah. So, anyways, we went to dinner with him one time when we first met him. I remember taking him out with a few people just to.
I know you're talking about.
Just to kind of welcome him to our group.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, he's like, I know you. What kind of Puerto Rican you are? You're not a real Puerto Rican. You don't even speak Spanish." I was like, first off, I do speak Spanish. Second of all, I got a pocket knife in my pocket. Ready to show you how Puerto Rican I can be.
All Puerto Ricans carry pocket knives.
Right. I'm like, I'll be more than happy to stab. And ever since that day, that conversation has stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
Because I've heard that my entire life. Like, oh, you're not a real Puerto Rican. You're light skinned. You don't have, you're not hood. I'm like, what does that even mean?
You're not hood.
I've gotten that a lot.
That's an insult.
I've gotten that, like, oh, you're from Brooklyn, but you're not hood. And this was when Brooklyn was hood at the time. Like, I'm talking about when I was, like, in middle school.
Yeah.
I'm like, what kind of, like, at first I was like, you're retarded. Like, I didn't understand ignorance. But now that I get it, I'm like, all right. And now I have no problem. Like, if somebody says that to me and they're like, oh, you're not a real Puerto Rican, I'm like, well, why don't you tell me what a real Puerto Rican is then?
It's like people put you into a box.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, okay. They'll be like, okay, well, you're black, you're an artist, I don't expect you to be good. And then they see my art, and they're like, oh, you did this? I'm like, I told you I was a fucking artist.
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh, you're a photographer, let me see your artwork. Oh, you did this? I'm like, yes. Like, why didn't you believe me?
It's always
because
like
they look at you and they have a perception of you,
yep,
whether they think it or not. And it's like, not to make this whole episode about race, but that's the fucked up thing about racism. It's like it's a very deep mental thing.
Yep.
And in this country, it's just fucking rampant where people have all these ideas.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess because I'm older now, I just don't give a fuck anymore.
I don't care.
You know.
I mean, I care to an extent, but like
I'll put somebody in their place.
Yeah. I don't get worked up over it.
Nah. I just check them.
Yeah. I'm just like, look. I don't know. With most things, I don't get upset anymore. Like, and people get mad that I don't get upset. Like, oh, you have to stand up. Like, no, I don't.
You don't give them the reaction they expect.
I'm like, I don't. And that goes both ways. Like, if somebody says something that I find is offensive to me or a friend of mine, I'll be like, yo, maybe you shouldn't say that. That's kind of fucked up to say.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm a big person. I'm a big free speech guy. So, like, I'm going to tell you that I don't like that, but I'm never going to say you're not allowed to say that.
You can't censor somebody.
I won't.
I agree.
I won't. And a lot of my friends who are very on the liberal side will be like, well, they shouldn't be allowed to say stuff like that. I'm like, listen.
Free speech.
Right. I'm like, they're allowed to say that the same way you're allowed to say the crazy shit you say, where you don't believe that you believe everything's a social construct. Like,
it has to go both ways.
Right. It goes both ways. You can't limit one person's speech so that you can have the upper hand in a conversation about, pretend or whatever. It's the same thing. I don't get worked up. Somebody says something I don't like, I'll check them, but I'm not going to get mad over it. I'm not going to have a hissy fit over it.
That's what I say is like, I'm older. I've learned to embrace the fact that I am who I am. Mm-hmm. Like when I was younger, people were like, oh, you should smile more. You should do this. You should try to fit in more. Now I'm like, I don't give a fuck about fitting in.
I don't give a fuck about fitting in.
I'm just doing my thing, man.
Yeah.
Walking my own path, whatever that means, you know, but I'm not trying to be a part of the in crowd. I'm like, nah, fuck
be
y'all,
just
man.
be you.
Y'all could be Mr. Smith. I'm gonna be Morpheus.
I find that if you're just
Morpheus
with the Matrix reference, I find that if you just be yourself, and it's super cliche, because I feel like you don't really figure out who you are much later in life. Like when you're a teenager, even in your 20s, and I'm in my last year of my 20s, you really don't know who you are, right? But I feel like once you figure that out, or if you just try to be, as close to yourself as you'll attract the kind of people you want around you.
That is true.
You'll attract the type of friends that you want. And it sucks when you're younger and you're kind of weird and you don't got many friends. Like for me in high school, I only had one friend. Mm-hmm. It was Bert. I had one friend. I had one friend in my entire life. And now when I started jiu-jitsu, I met all you guys, and now I have a bunch of friends. But I have like a small set of friends that I consider good friends. You know. But I don't know. It's just a weird thing with this whole race thing in America, and everything's so politicized. Everything's so blown out of proportion. I feel like sometimes
all the time, man. I hate it. It's like I can't just be a man. I got to be a black man.
Yeah. Like the color of your skin is
like fuck.
Like the color of your skin.
You're a black artist. Like no, bitch, I'm an artist.
The color of your skin should not matter as long as like for your art. The art speaks for itself. What I look like should not at all matter to what you're looking at, right? But on this topic of like race and just all this, I read an article, or you shared an article with me about inmates that are being sterilized or had the opportunity to be sterilized for 30 days off their sentence.
There was that,
is this for all? Is this for
Tennessee?
all? Is this for all inmates?
I don't know. I guess there's ones who sign up for it. I mean, there's probably like county jail giving us 30 days.
Is that even legal?
Obviously, it is. Yeah.
So what's the deal? They can voluntarily choose to be permanently sterilized, and they get 30 days off their sentence.
30 days off their sentence. They get an implant.
They get a fucking implant.
Yeah. It's not like a chip implant, so I guess it's some type of like the way chicks have. I don't know the science behind it, but it's some weird. Type of. That's the article I read.
So
some type of sterilization
implant. It's not like a vasectomy.
It could be.
That's fucked up.
But it said an implant, so I thought it was vasectomy.
That's weird. That's like.
But
they
did the same thing in California years ago.
Really?
Yeah, it was like there was this big case of this woman. I think she was like a drug addict, but she kept having kids, and they were like, well, it was a few cases, but I remember one case in general. Where it was like could have been the 90s, but it was a woman who kept having kids. She had a bunch of kids, but she was also a drug addict, like hardcore, the type of person who would just never be sober, right? And a judge ordered her to be sterilized. They could do forced sterilization. I think it's easier on women. I don't know. I could be fucking. Don't take my word for it. This is just I'm going off my memory. But I remember that was a big case because how they're gonna force sterilization on somebody, even though they did. But it was like I don't know if it's a civil rights case, but it's the same thing along those lines of how can a child be convicted of an adult crime?
Right.
It's the same thing. And now a bunch of states are changing those laws where children they will not go to an adult prison.
Right. Yeah. It kind of brings a bell now that you're mentioning it. The forced sterilization.
I remember I definitely remember it was a woman in California who had like a bunch of kids. And that was all over the news.
Right. And she was just like not being a good mother.
She was just a fucking career criminal.
Right.
But also a drug addict at the same time. So it's like, you got to have some type of sympathy. But I remember it was a forced sterilization on her. Yeah. And that was like the big case that made the news.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I hate to say that. Like, it makes sense in a way, but it is an infringement on so many personal rights. Like,
I mean, people can do what they did in Israel. What's that? Where there was a case a few years ago. I came across this on RT News where it was because Israel, the Jewish faith, and there's a bunch of people from Ethiopia, and all around Africa. There's a lot of Jews in Africa, black Jews, who migrate to Israel. But because of Israel didn't want them, the story was they didn't want them mixing into the population. So the women were given contraceptive that also sterilized them. Yeah, man. It was it was a big case. And they settled and it was like all this shit. But they talked about it on RT News.
That's like some sneaky.
Yeah, man. It was a fucked up story.
I don't like that. That's weird. Yeah. So, do you think they knew that it was going to sterilize them?
The women? No.
The government?
Yes.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, because they didn't find out until like later.
I mean, I could see if the government didn't know, Mm-hmm. But damn, that's fucked up. That's some crazy shit. Speaking of crazy shit, that company in Wisconsin who's microchipping their employees. Yeah. A giant fear of mine is that the future is going to have a bunch of people who have lost all control of their freedom because they've been microchipped and the government's tracking all their stuff.
Yeah, see?
Oh, you brought up the link?
Yeah, Israel health officials address claims of forced contraception for Ethiopians. And then that's from RT News. And then here's another. Israel forcibly injected African immigrants with birth control, reports claims and sterilization.
Damn, that's on Forbes?
Yeah.
Jesus. That's fucked up. How is that not like a crime against humanity?
Well, it was.
It was, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Fucking air. But did you see that article about the microchip people in Wisconsin, the factory.
Yeah, that's messed up.
That's
how it starts.
That freaks me out. I don't like that. I mean, I know how I kind of guess how you feel about the idea of microchipping humans.
I mean, I feel like it's going to be mandatory at one point. Yeah.
What?
Believe it or not, it's going to be mandatory, man. Just like GPS, everybody has GPS. Everybody has a RFID chip. It's like we all carry it on us, whether it's in a credit card, whether it's on your driver's license, whether it's in your passport, whether it's on your cell phone. We can all be tracked.
Yeah, but there's something about having a chip put under your skin.
And there's going to be a time in history where this is going to be normal. That's the scary part. You know, like in my own Minority Report, the thing was he had to take out his eyes and get new eyeballs.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be that extreme, but that movie shed a lot on a lot of things, you know.
I rewatched it like a week ago.
Yeah, it's trippy.
Yeah, it really is.
But, you know, shit, you could take out fucking Behold the Pale Horse. You know, he talked about that years ago in the 90s. He was like, yeah, we're going to be, it started with the dogs. It was like, they got a thing where they tag the dogs. They can always track the dogs. Mm-hmm. And they're like, they're going to put that in humans.
Put it in kids?
Yeah.
I think what the next step is they're going to put it in kids so that in case something happens to them, you can always track them. And then eventually those kids are just going to grow up, forget they have it, and then they're going to microchip their kids. And before you know, you'll have generation after generation of people that have been microchipped. In reference to what John just said about Behold the Pale Horse, that is a book written by Bill Cooper.
William
Cooper, Bill for short. It's a book that is sort of infamous, I guess you would say. I read it at the recommendation of Smalls, and it. I don't want to say it changed my life, but it definitely opened me up to a lot of things. It's what most people would consider a conspiracy book. The short is that William Cooper was in the Navy, and he allegedly claimed to have access to a lot of information that pertained to UFOs and the New World Order and, you know, the people who control the planet, that sort of thing. It's a very interesting book. A lot of it has actually come to pass. There's a lot of documents that are in this book that you can find online that are true. Government documents that were passed by Congress, laws, legislation. Yeah, it borders on the line of crazy, you know. I mean, Alex Jones. I mean, there's actually a recording of Alex Jones talking to William Cooper on a radio show.
They argue, right?
Yeah, they argue. And what makes this whole thing interesting is that William Cooper ended up declaring himself sovereign and never paid taxes and ended up getting into a gunfight with the marshals in Arizona, I believe. Serving a warrant. He got into a gunfight, was shot in the head and killed.
Here we go.
I'm pretty sure he killed a marshal in the process. And
they killed him.
Right. There's a whole chapter in the book called An ID Tag That Won't Get Lost, and it talks about implanting a chip in a dog so that they can be tracked, and then he talks about it relating to humans and how they're going to eventually microchip humans.
Yep.
What do you think?
I mean,
you think it's going to be mandated?
There's not a lot of books that I read, you know, like what they call conspiracy books, right? Mm-hmm. But prior to reading this book, I was reading a lot of books because, you know, back in the day, the internet wasn't as common as it is now.
Right.
You know, in the 90s, only certain people had internet access. So, me and my friends, we would get books, order books, and when we found books, we would share them. So it was like you read a lot of stuff. But I remember when one of my boys told me about this book, one of my friends told me about this book, and I bought it. I believe I bought it at Barnes & Nobles or something. But I know when I bought it at the store, it was like I still had the same copy, and I was like, that book just changed my life on everything. Because the one thing that he did, which no one else has done that I know of, except for like Dr. Stephen Greer, is provide the actual evidence to back up everything he talk about. So in William Cooper's book, he backs up everything he talks about.
Yeah,
he does. And that's one thing you got to be like, okay, well, you could be crazy, but you're crazy with facts.
Right.
Like Alex Jones, he could be crazy, but he has the documents, right? So it's like you got to be like, well, shit. What I'm going to say now?
Right. I mean, there's so many things that in that book that I was reading, I'm like, this is crazy. And then he was like, and then on the next page you turn and it has the document number that you can look up at the Library of Congress.
Like,
and you know what? I was like, you know what? I'm going to fucking look this up. And I looked it up. I'm like, holy shit. Like the whole thing on FEMA camps. Like, the government can intern U.S. citizens the internment camps should it choose to state a declare a
or,
state of emergency.
as they're calling them nowadays, relocation centers.
Right.
Or detention centers.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen what goes on at the immigrant detention centers?
No, I'm not an immigrant.
Man, there's fucking videos online, like news videos, like real sources of the shit that goes on there, and it's the most inhumane conditions, but nobody's talking about it because they're immigrants. So they're detained there, they're staying there, and it's just like it looks like a fucking dog kennel. It's not. It doesn't even look like a prison. It doesn't even look like a county jail. It's just like a dog kennel, and people are just staying there and they're living, and then they get shipped the fuck out, and it's horrible, man.
Well, that's probably what's gonna happen to us, to be honest.
I don't know. I mean, like, there's a few things I got on my mind that, you know, I'm trying to like prepare for and, you know, I guess prep for, but I would never want to live in those conditions, man. I hope it never comes to that in our lifetime.
Like I think I mentioned this to you earlier before when we were chatting online. I don't think that'll happen in our lifetime. It'll probably happen either in our children's lifetime or their children's lifetime, because people right now are still kind of like, I don't like to use the term woke, but
I disagree so much.
I mean, there's like, okay, for example, my dad's very much like, he doesn't trust the government. He thinks the government's are liars. Yeah. And I feel like the generation before us is very much like that. Mm-hmm. The new generation, what I call I think they call it iGen. I think that's what they call it now. The kids that are born with the internet. Yeah. They are the ones that are susceptible to believing whatever the government says. But people like us, like I'm considered a millennial, and I think a lot of millennials fall into this problem where they trust the government too. I don't, and I think partially it's because I read William Cooper's book. But like whenever the government says something, I'm the first one. Like in my mind, I'm like, I don't believe shit. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people like that, like you and me, who wouldn't, like if the government's like, we need to relocate you for your safety, we'd all be like, fuck you.
Yeah, but so you got to look at, okay, here I'm going to give you some examples of how quick things can hit the fan. The Boston bombing. They locked down Boston. Locked it down. Went house to house. That shit was under martial law. Was nobody doing shit. Right. Perfect example. They locked it down. It was like, no, we're going to find him and we're going to kill anybody that's in our way. She was all over the news. Mm-hmm. Great example, right? Another example, 9/11, right? They locked down parts of Manhattan. Complete lockdown. Like that movie with Denzel Washington and Bruce Willis, Siege, where they just locked that shit down, locked people up. It was like, no, we're snatching up everybody. Patriot Act, that shit's still in effect. Yep. You got Hurricane Katrina. Same thing. They considered martial law. You had to vacate your houses. It was like, oh, but this is my stuff. Doesn't matter. Get the fuck out. Right. They cleaned it out, and then you can go back. Right. It's like, when they want to step in and do something, they're going to step in and do something.
I think that...
But I think it's going to take a situation that's going to spark them to do that.
Right. Well, I think also at this point with the way things are in the government, I think it's going to lead to a much quicker turnaround of people saying no.
Yeah, but not here where we're at, because we're fucked.
Well, we're fucked because we live in a place that doesn't allow...
This is a trap.
Right. Yeah. But I think the way things are going, I think, and this is just my opinion, I think there are certain types of people who would be willing to like listen to the government and do whatever the government says. Yeah. And then I think there are people who, and I think there's a lot of people who are just gonna say no and just be like, we're gonna, and what's gonna happen is if the government tries something, they're gonna do something terrible, and people are gonna be like, well, that's fucked up, and it's gonna start a whole thing. It's gonna start like a whole protest, like violent protest situation, and that's what's gonna... I think that's the only way we can keep it from happening. If something like that to happen, was people would need to get up in arms.
That's a civil war.
Yeah, and that and people say I'm crazy when I say this, but I think we're a young nation. We're the only nation like in the world probably that I know of that hasn't had an armed revolution. How many fucking armed revolutions has France had where they've had to overthrow a king and hang him? Or in Egypt with the Arab Spring. Yeah. Like, it takes... Sometimes you have to... I mean, I'm not advocating it. I sort of am. Sometimes you just gotta fucking get bloody. Like, I think it was Thomas Jefferson. I'm pretty sure it was Thomas Jefferson who said, that the tree of liberty from time to time needs to be watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots.
Shit.
I'm pretty sure that's what he said. I think it was in one of the Federalist Papers. But yeah, the tree of liberty from time to time needs to be watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots. And that's, if you want to preserve your liberty, sometimes violence is the only way to preserve your liberty. And it depends. And listen, sometimes it's not going to happen. Sometimes you lose your liberty and you just accept it and you take it. And if that's what the majority of the people want, then you lose your liberties. And you know what they say, when you lose a right, you don't get it back. Right? If we give up the First Amendment, very little chance that we'll get it back. And
we're always giving up the Second Amendment.
Right, and that's what that's what the NRA says. That's what a lot of people say is like, if you give up your right to bear arms, you will never get that right back. Yep. It's very easy for you to lose it and give it up, but once it's gone, the chances of you getting it back very slim. And it doesn't just apply to the Second Amendment, any amendment, Fourth Amendment, your privacy, First Amendment, your freedom of speech. Anything.
We already give up our privacy.
Your Fifth Amendment to self-incrimination, right? I plead the Fifth. You
have the Constitution over there.
Like, know your rights. Yeah. Know what it says, and really think about it. Like, I believe that the Constitution was written in the order it is for a reason. You have the most important amendment, which is your freedom of speech, right? Freedom of press, which allows you to speak up against the government, and then right behind that you have your right to bear arms, which is to keep your freedom should you need to use violent arms. And yes, the Second Amendment is written in a very odd way, which is the security for the security of a free state, the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. Yes, it does say the militia, whatever, but it finishes it with the right of the people, and the people make up the militia. So, according to the Supreme Court, the individual has the right to bear arms. I believe the individual has the right to bear arms. It only makes sense, right? Because
or bow and arrow.
Yeah, whatever arms is, arms is arms. Yeah. I mean, I guess, but it's also weird because when you think about it realistically, even if we did have some kind of armed revolution, the military could pretty much stomp out whatever kind of shit we do because they got drones and shit.
Yep.
Right. I mean, even though technically they're not allowed to do that on American soil, right? They're not allowed to, but we know that's probably not the case.
But in the case of a civil war, they would.
Yeah, for sure.
They're an enemy of the state.
They're probably using drones in like Chicago.
I wouldn't doubt it. They're using black sites.
You got the Constitution there?
Yeah, just this was free actually.
Really?
Yeah, there was I got it years ago. There was a site that were giving these away. You just got to pay for shipping. So I got one. Just like the Declaration of Independence in the United States Constitution and a bunch of other facts that come in the book.
I think a lot of people don't realize what we're allowed to do in terms of I think a lot of people forget that the power should be in the hands of the people.
The government should be afraid of the people.
Yeah.
Not the people afraid of the government.
Very good at quoting V for Vendetta.
Oh, that's where it's from? I hate that fucking movie.
Really? I love that movie.
But I always understand that.
Yeah.
That's where it's from?
Yeah. Oh. People should, the government should fear their people, not the other way around. That actor's so good. Really? That actor's so good.
And then Natalie Portman, I'm not a fan of her.
I like her. Queen Amidala, she can get it.
See, in Star Wars, she was dope.
You ever see
And then Leon, a professional, she was cool too.
Yeah. You ever see The Rocketeer?
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember the bad guy in The Rocketeer?
No.
The guy with
I saw that movie like a long ass time ago.
I have this movie on VHS. Funny story. That was one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. And
one movie we agree on, The Rocketeer.
Right? And I remember in my school, in elementary school, you could bring in a movie and they would show it during auditorium or whatever. Yeah. And I brought in The Rocketeer, and the movie's like PG-13.
Yeah.
Because it has like Nazis and stuff in America in the 40s.
There's steampunk.
Yeah. And then they brought machine guns, and the minute they brought out a Tommy gun, they took it off, and they were like, "This movie,
dieselpunk."
Yeah, they're like, "This movie's too violent." I'm like, they're killing Nazis. Well, I don't understand why. And I got in trouble for it or whatever. But the bad guy in that movie, Neville Sinclair, he's the voice of V. And he's a great actor. Like the minute I watched
I gotta rewatch it.
The minute I watched V for Vendetta and I heard his voice, I immediately knew it was him.
But it was Hugo Weaving, right?
Yeah, and he plays the bad guy.
Huh.
Yeah. And he has such a distinct voice that it always stuck with me. Like, that's V. I'm gonna see right now. But yeah, like that movie, if you haven't seen The Rocketeer, go watch The Rocketeer. It's a little corny now, but
I think it'll hold up.
Yeah.
It was different.
And V for Vendetta is, I think, one of
the Wachowski
No.
Because they're like,
what's his name? The
sex change.
No. Oh no. Oh, that's what one of them did, right?
Both of them.
Really?
Yeah, they're not like the brothers anymore. They're Wachowski.
Nah, that's some publicity ass shit.
Dude, look it up.
Let me see.
Speaking of transgender, what about the new ban on transgender in the Navy or the military? Because they're staying in the Navy.
Oh, wow.
Post about
I was totally wrong. Hugo Weaving did play the voice of...
Yeah.
I could have sworn...
You don't know what you're talking about. You don't got the facts.
I don't. Oh, man, I'm tight now. I really thought it was this famous... Damn, I'm real mad now. Damn, I really thought it was... where's this guy's name?
You know, fucked up.
Timothy Dalton.
You know that, right?
Look, I really thought it was him.
James Bond?
Yeah! I really thought it was him. God damn it. That's depressing.
Get your facts right.
Damn it. Well, at least I know Hugo Weaving did a badass job with V. But yeah, that whole movie is... V for Vendetta is a giant commentary on what happens when you let the state get too powerful. Think about what they could do in that movie, what the state agency could do. It's I mean, I don't think it's that far away from being possible.
Think it'd be like Equilibrium. You ever see that?
Mm-hmm. Equilibrium or Elysium?
Equilibrium.
Yeah.
With Christian Bale and Taye Diggs.
I think it's possible. Man,
I don't know, man. I don't want to live in an area like that or a place like that. I don't know what's coming in our future. I have no idea. You know, I know that whatever comes, I want to be prepared for it in some way.
Hopefully.
Like Sparks.
Yeah.
Sparks is always ready. Ain't that right, Sparks? Yeah.
This cat.
She's super chill.
I don't think we can be prepared enough.
Nah, we can't. It's like I always think about that. Like we talked about this before, you know, like having kits and getting ready and all that shit. And it's like you can't prepare for shit. You gotta be able to adapt to the situation, you know, whether it's a storm, whether it's war, whether it's terrorist attack, whether it's aliens, flood, whatever it is, you know, it's like you gotta be able to adapt under pressure, you know. We're in interesting times right now. It's like, fuck.
You never know what's going to happen. Every day there's something new on the news with our government or with something else or something. I mean, I'm not even really worried about the government right now because it seems like a cartoon, to be honest.
But I think, like, there was a post the other day when it was saying something about Chomsky. He's still alive. And he was saying that everything that's going on with Trump in politics right now is just a distraction. But what are they hiding from us? And I was like,
I don't want to know.
Just want to know if it's aliens.
I feel like if there were aliens, we'd already know.
That's my thing. I'm like,
I feel like Trump would have let something slip.
What if
I feel like he would have been like,
what if David Icke is right?
I hope he's not. That'd be real fucked up.
Oh man, what if he is? What if David Icke, all this time, everybody else was wrong, but David Icke, the craziest one of them all, was right.
You know what's weird about David Icke? He speaks so well, and he speaks in such a measured tone. But the shit he says is so outrageous. But he says it in such a calm way. You're like, is that true? Like, he's talking about reptilian people, aliens in another dimension that live on the moon.
He's never had proof of anything.
He's never proved a goddamn thing he's ever said.
A document at all.
Not one. And he's written like 10 books.
More than that, probably.
He's written like 10 books. He's got some crazy fucking arthritis in his hands. You ever seen his hands when he points? Oh, his hands are all fucked up. You see how you like this? Your fingers are straight.
Yeah.
His are like bent at like a weird angle. He looks like a reptilian. He point. Look at his hands. Next time you watch it, David Icke video.
Yeah.
Look at his hands. When he goes like this, he does this a lot. Where like he picks up his hand, his fingers are not straight. They're curved to the side, like his fingers are at like a 45-degree angle to his knuckles.
Shit.
He has some I think he may be reptilian.
I remember when I first came to New York, there was a store like back when New York had like mom and pop shops, boutiques all over the place. There was like it was a small store. They sell like incense and African gear and shit like that. You know, Black Power type stuff or Afrocentric type stuff. So I would go down there. It was like on 23rd Street and Broadway. So it was like just when you get out of Midtown, you get like to the trendy area of what was the trendy area in New York, right? Had like all these cool shops all over the place. So anyways, there's this one shop I used to go to, and you go in, the first floor was always like the incense, the black soap, and all this stuff, beauty products and everything for black people. Then you go to the second floor, and it was kind of smaller, the second floor, but all they had was books. That was it. It was just books, all types of books, man. And they had all David Icke shit. Yeah, and I still have a few that I bought there. But I remember like always seeing his books, and he had one book about the Matrix. And this was before the Matrix movie. And it was like I think that's still like one of his number one books. But it was like how we're all living in this Matrix, how it's not real. And it's funny because now there's a whole simulation theory that people believe in. They're like, okay, well, they found computer code now and like some type of how do I explain it? I listened to a podcast on it the other day. It was too deep for me, but it was saying how they found computer code in some signal, some type of physics, right? But it's actual computer code. They were like, well, are we living in a simulation? Which is why we haven't been able to see like extraterrestrials, or why we haven't been able to find like other forms of life. I don't know. I stopped listening to the podcast. I was like, this is too...
I gotta listen to that.
Yeah, I was like, this is too much for me right now.
That's nuts.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm ready for that. I don't think I'm ready.
I always remember David Icke
wrote
about that shit a while ago, man. So I'm like,
he writes some crazy shit. There are people that
I don't follow him though, but I'm like,
I don't follow him either. But
you're too much, dude. You need to tone it down a bit.
I would like to go out with him, like to like a bar and just have a couple beers and be like, so I want to like shadow him and be like, is this really you? Like, is this really you? Or is this some shit you concocted so you can sell books, right? Because you know he's got to be making good money from these books. Even though he's never proven anything in these books, you know people are buying them.
I think he believes it to an extent.
And his audiences that he draws are fucking huge.
My thing is this, though. It's like, all right, here's how I put it together. So say like we had the dinosaurs, right? And whatever killed off the dinosaurs could have mutated a species of dinosaurs to be like some type of reptilian species, right?
Okay.
Follow me, right?
All right.
So now, back in the day, ancient civilizations, they all worshipped some type of serpent, whether it was a snake, Seth, or whether it was like a dragon in Asia.
Yep.
You know, there was all types, some type of serpent that was like wise and mystical and all these special powers. What if, this is crazy shit, so what if like whatever killed the dinosaurs didn't actually kill off all the species, but mutated a certain species, and that species evolved into be like, we had like humans that developed, but we also had like the species that survived the extinction of the dinosaurs, mutated to something else, became like some higher power, ancient being, and that's the same serpent that we see in the Bible. Because if you look at old religions, they all talk about some serpent being,
right?
God,
serpents are big.
And it's like you can't deny it. Like people can say, "Oh, well, that's made up." Bullshit! It's not made up. This is what they believed in.
It's all over. If you look at ancient societies,
in the Bible, it doesn't say a snake. The new version say a snake, but the old version
says serpent.
Serpent.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, I don't know. Like when I hear those stories, I try to like put, try to put it together. How can I rationalize this information?
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, obviously the dinosaurs were here. They died off. That's a fact. How? We don't know, but they died off. So I'm like, what if all of them didn't die off? They somehow evolved, and this is a species. So the people that he's saying like the reptilians, maybe they are fucking not some extraterrestrials. Maybe they're just another evolutionary chain.
I mean,
I don't know.
That's one way to look at it.
But if you look at all the evidence, it's like, yo, there are there's some shit on this earth that we can't explain. People are so quick to say like all these ancient civilizations, these indigenous religions, these pagan religions, that they're all bullshit because they're not Christian. Just because they're not Christian doesn't mean they're bullshit.
Right.
It's like it came from somewhere.
Yes, it did. Food for thought.
Yeah, man. It's like sometimes I think about that. You know, you go down a rabbit hole and you just start connecting the dots, and it's like, well, shit, I don't know.
Shit's crazy.
I do not know.
What else you got on your list for today?
I think we had a lot of stuff. We talked a lot of stuff.
We talked a lot.
Sorry, like an hour and a half.
Damn. What do you want? You want to wrap it up?
Maybe we can do that.
All right. Well, folks, it's episode 3. Thank you for joining us once again. I'm half your host, Chico.
The Grin.
We'd like to thank you for joining us. If you haven't, check out our previous episodes. There's 0, 1, and 2. 0 is pretty much a podcast that John and I did from his other podcast show that sparked the idea for this one. And then there's episodes 1 and 2, which in episode 1, we talked about all sorts of things. Trump. We talked some
We
art.
always talk about Trump.
We always do. We try to sneak him in there from time to time, that Dorito.
He makes it so easy for us to talk about Trump.
It's not even fair.
Yeah.
And then episode 2, we spoke. It was a much looser conversation.
Yes.
So check those out. Let us know what you think. We are on social media. You can find our fan page on Facebook, facebook.com/Chico and The Grin.
Boom.
Instagram @Chico and The Grin.
Boom.
Right now we're on SoundCloud, so you can find us on SoundCloud if you just search.
Boom. Until they go out of business. But, you know, for now, we're on SoundCloud. We're still waiting. We have the pending approval on iTunes for everybody to download. You know, just got to... I don't know how this shit's going to work, but
we'll figure it out.
Pending approval.
Right. And I guess after iTunes, we'll expand over to Google Play as well. And eventually we'd like to be on YouTube in some form or fashion, even if it's just the audio with a rinky-dink rotating the logo or something.
And
we'll figure
whiskey.
that out. Yeah.
So later the YouTube, we won't drink any more beer. We'll just drink whiskey.
Probably. Let us know what you think. Comment on our Facebook page. You know, we
should do live stream.
We should at some point.
Yeah.
We should. We'll post up this episode. Make a comment if you like what you hear. Let us know. If you don't like it, let us know. Yeah. So we just want to say thanks for listening, and we hope to see you in the next episode.
Yeah. Stay creative. Question everything. And never trust a big button to smile.
That's right.
Peace.
Later.